Speaking of communist, the National Communist Against Athletics, as Brian Bosworth famously called the NCAA, has been sued again for its monopolistic practices. The Supreme Court's already determined the NCAA violated antitrust laws, and this involves the name, image, and likeness of individual players, who
It,
they should be legally entitled to the monetary profit from that themselves. But the NCAA tries to prohibit them from profiting from it, and they try to use their amateurism as the excuse when really they just want to line their pockets with other people's labor.
this is
Uh,
the one we talked about this a while back. This was using what's this one? Hold on, I'm gonna.
so this is a new suit because the NCAA is now punishing players that have used NIL benefits, even in states where NIL is legal, and so they're prohibiting players from being eligible to play. And so another class action has been filed against them based on their attempts to revitalize their antitrust behavior.
Let me see this here. Hold on. This is the. I'll bring up one brief article on this. Opponent states about money. Will the NCAA get antitrust exemption on what it could mean if it does? If the mission is to protect athletes, but that is not how the NCAA behaves.
Yeah, they're protecting their own monetary interests of the institutions and the media and everyone else that rips off the players. It's the players' labor that produces the value, and these are artificial wage caps that are imposed by these folks to try to under the amateurist. All that stuff has always been garbage. I mean, I think we're the only country in the world that forces kids to participate at an amateur level before they can play professionally, as is the case in particularly with college football. You have to play so many years before you're eligible for the draft, but also in basketball and other sports. And it's just the kids are making the money. Nobody's watching the coach. Nobody's watching the school. Nobody's watching the brand. They're watching the players. They produce all this profit that they don't get to share in. They get a tiny piece of the. Well, people, they get a scholarship. That's not worth anywhere near the value they contribute, particularly these big time players. I mean, really, the other factor, it's
a
also
billion.
it's wealth redistribution.
It's $1 billion. The market for the NCAA.
Yeah, well, they take the money from this, and then they give it to sports nobody cares about. So they give it for women's sports, and they give it for rich kid sports. So those sports get state funding paid for by these athletes who get underpaid. And so the NCAA, because the Supreme Court's case, was forced to allow NIL, name, image, and likeness payments by universities set up in a certain way, but they've been playing games with it, and they escalated to this point where they're not allowing these kids to even be eligible to play at Chicago State because of their prior NIL profits. And they're going to ultimately lose. I mean, the NCAA is just an ongoing antitrust violation, and shouldn't be allowed to do any of this activity. It's an artificial wage cap. That's what it is. It's monopolistic antitrust violations, Sherman Act, and hopefully the NCAA will be stopped with this case and forced to concede they have to go along with what the Supreme Court told them to do some years ago.